In 1876, at the end of the Reconstruction period which followed the Civil War, Texas adopted a new constitution that reflected the lack of faith in government the citizens had formed during the Reconstruction period. The earlier Constitution of 1845, which had been adopted when Texas entered the Union as a state, somewhat resembled the U.S. Constitution. Most executive branch offices were appointive, as was the judiciary. Resentful of the treatment they received at the hands of governors and other officials appointed by the occupying U.S. Army, the delegates who wrote the new Constitution severely limited the power of state officials, along with their salaries and terms of office. Furthermore, reflecting the Jacksonian belief that governmental duties were so simple they could be performed by just about anyone, Texas made most state offices elective. To this day, Texas operates under the 1876 Constitution. Unlike cities, which operate mainly under home rule charters, Texas counties are political subdivisions of the state government. Every county, regardless of size or population, has the same political structure, as outlined in the state constitution. The governing body of the county is the Commissioners' Court, consisting of a county judge and 4 commissioners. The commissioners are elected by the citizens of the precinct in which they reside. Aside from the law enforcement function performed by the county sheriff, perhaps the most expensive function of county government is road maintenance. This presentation will focus on the 2 alternative systems devised for performing this function that exist in Texas: the precinct system and the unit system. 2 counties of similar size, Coryell and Erath counties, will be used to illustrate the budgetary differences between the systems. Although the scale of these maps makes Erath County appear much larger, notice that in terms of area, Erath County is only 33 square miles larger than Coryell. Coryell County adopted the unit system in 2003. Erath County still operates under the precinct system. In the 1800s, road maintenance was done by horse or mule team. Because it was impossible to drive a team from the county seat out to the furthest reaches of the county and back in a day, precinct barns were established strategically in the 4 commissioners' precincts. The main duty of the county commissioner was the supervision of the road crew in his precinct. While the equipment changed after the invention of the internal combustion engine in the early 20th century, county road maintenance remained the responsibility of the commissioners. In the majority of Texas counties, the barns still exist, and road maintenance is done by the precincts. As time passed, however, both the technology and the equipment for road construction and maintenance changed, but the Jacksonian model of county government did not. The elected county commissioners had no expertise regarding road maintenance. Consequently, the county was forced to hire people that did. So, in both Coryell County before 2003 and in Erath County today, each precinct has a foreman to supervise the road crews. When you have equipment, you must maintain that equipment. All too often, due to either lack of expertise or neglect, or both, equipment in the precincts began to look like this. Then, due to simple petty human jealousy, when a piece of new equipment was purchased for one precinct, the other 3 commissioners wanted one too. There's also the problem of accountability. Under the precinct system, when a road crew is given a particular job for the day, that is usually their only job that day. Once it is finished, even if before lunch, they simply go home for the rest of the day. The end result is that over time, the taxpayers are spending ever-increasing amounts, especially in terms of salaries and other employee benefits, for inefficient services. As stated earlier, Prior to 2003, Coryell County operated under the precinct system. The 4 commissioners continued to receive full salaries despite having a foreman who actually handled the job. In the decade from 1980 to 1990, total expenditures for county road and bridge rose 34.3%. In the next decade, they rose 129.5%. This was mainly due to the decision to pave all county roads, believing that this would lower maintenance costs over time. From 2000 to 2003, when the county switched to the unit system, total expenditures for that department fell 9.7%. The switch to the unit system required a county election. Voter approval of the change passed by a single vote. Since that time, expenditures have risen only 12.4%, despite the fact that the cost of materials to repair the roads that were paved in the 90s have risen over 300%. On a cautionary note, one thing the voters of Coryell County failed to do after approving the change was to ensure that the commissioners' salaries were reduced commensurate with the reduction in their duties. As our representatives at the national level have amply demonstrated, the base human traits of greed and selfishness do not disappear just because someone is elected to public office. In fact, those traits are sometimes even magnified in public officials. Coryell County commissioners proved that when they put their own selfishness over concern for the taxpayers. As with any governmental entity, unless the citizens are vigilant, money saved in one area will simply be spent in another. And every dollar the government takes is one less dollar that a young mother has to feed her children, or that a senior citizen has on a fixed income trying to purchase both food and medicine. As stated earlier, Erath County still operates under the precinct system. It's interesting to note that although each precinct has a foreman, and despite the fact that the county has 1/2 the population of Coryell County, Erath County commissioners are being paid 44.9% more per year than the commissioners in Coryell County. But how do the taxpayers decide what an appropriate salary would be for a county commissioner? One guideline that could be used is to compare the duties with other elected officials in the state. Recall that the county is a political subdivision of the state government. So let's consider a comparison between county commissioner and state representative. Each of the 150 members of the Texas House represent roughly 176,000 Texans. Given the population of Erath County, roughly 38,000, this means that if the county's population were evenly spread over each precinct, a commissioner represents 10,000 or fewer people. State representatives receive $7,200 per year. Plus, they receive $150 per day for per diem for the 140 days the legislature meets every other year. In the legislative year, that adds up to $28,200. Adding in the $7,200 for their off year, they receive a total of $35,400 for their 2-year term, or $17,700 per year. Thus, the question becomes, why should a county commissioner with no road duties be paid almost $60,000 per year just to attend commissioner court meetings? For the purposes of this presentation, it was deemed unnecessary to obtain budget figures for Erath County going back to 1980, as was done for Coryell County. The main comparison to be made is total expenditure for road and bridge in the two counties at the present time. Although the county budgets are not formatted exactly the same, certain line items can be identified which represent the same expenditures. The line items included in this analysis are employee salaries and benefits, including FICA, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, health and dental insurance. Although the amounts in Erath County are quite significant, funds being paid into retirement accounts are not included. Additional items are for fuel, equipment purchase and repairs, and road materials. The amounts budgeted in Erath County for 2013 and 14 are shown here. And here are side-by-side comparisons for the two counties. Returning to the two county maps for a moment, it must be noted that Coryell County has approximately 200 miles less to maintain than Erath County. This is due to the large amount of federal property represented by the Fort Hood training area circled in red that lies within Coryell County. But all 200 of those miles do not require repair every year. Whether the larger number of miles of road in Erath County fully justifies the additional amounts being spent is something for the taxpayers to decide. In coming to such a decision, one consideration is how much is being spent per mile. But the implications here go far beyond simple budgetary numbers. What must also be considered is the efficient use of equipment and personnel, as well as whether it is proper to continue to pay a public servant for work that he or she is no longer doing. The Stephenville City Council recently voted to increase property taxes by 1 cent per $100 valuation. One question that arose was what streets would not be fixed if city revenues were insufficient to cover all city services. But taxpayers living in Stephenville must realize that they are paying taxes to two different governmental entities for duplicate services. Traditionally, incorporated cities in Texas have been responsible for road maintenance within their incorporated boundaries, while the county handles only the unincorporated areas. This begs the question of whether such an arrangement is still logical, given that each of the departments has duplicative equipment, much of which sits idle on any given day. Although the Texas Constitution does not allow city-county consolidation as is done in other states, the statutes do provide for interlocal cooperative agreements in which duplicative services may be provided in a more efficient manner by combining personnel and equipment. But citizens must elect individuals committed to such interlocal cooperation. Such an agreement for road maintenance was not feasible in Coryell County due to its having two metropolitan areas, Gatesville and Coppers Cove, separated by 30 miles of federal property. In Erath County, however, there is only one metropolitan area, sited almost in the center of the county. And almost half the population in Erath County actually lives inside the corporate limits of Stephenville. By banding together with county residents who also believe the county is spending entirely too much, the citizens of Stephenville represent a large voting bloc that could gain control of the Commissioner's Court and force the city and county to enact an interlocal agreement for road maintenance. Unfortunately, as is the case in practically every city in America, citizens and local political parties tend to focus on national issues and neglect the levels of government that have a much greater impact on their daily lives. Because of this citizen neglect, governments begin to view themselves as somehow separate from the people, able to do just about anything they want because no one is watching. It boils down to the age-old question of exactly what is the function of elected officials. Are they delegates, representatives of the people, concerned principally with doing what their constituents want? Or are they to be considered trustees, acting based on their own judgment of what should be done because they don't believe the people are informed or attentive enough to fully understand the issues? Unless citizens are vigilant, elected officials will always act in their own best interest, particularly when it comes to salary and benefits. One stumbling block is the normal human aversion to change. and a lack of vision. The unwillingness to take action simply because one is unable to clearly see exactly what the end product will look like. I liken it to a person in Dallas getting ready to go on vacation to Denver, but being unwilling to leave their driveway until all the lights along the route are green at the same time. Citizens, as well as elected officials, must make decisions based on the best facts available at the time. Successful precedents that have been set in similar areas provide something of a roadmap to follow. There are still some of the old hands who dislike the unit system in Coryell County. They argue that switching has not saved the millions of dollars that people said it would save. What they really long for are the good old days when they could be paid a full day's wage for half a day's work. The unit system has been a success in Coryell County. Switching from the precinct system to the unit system was never intended to generate millions of dollars in immediate savings. It was intended to provide a more manageable and efficient organization for delivering a particular government service, so that the growth in expenditures could be better controlled over time. That goal has been accomplished. To return to the original question, are Texas counties an example of a failure of Jacksonian democracy? The answer is an unqualified yes. But they also provide a clear example of a failure of representative government. When citizens are so concerned with national issues over which they have little control and neglect how their local government is spending their money, those citizens are getting exactly the sort of government they deserve.